position, where it's like one of the responsibilities to delegate the job, and you rephrase that will be work with a team where you delegate and how you have experience on those things. You get what it is there, and you rephrase in a way that you show that you know what that is and you know how to do the job.
You can connect it to your experience. I really like that. This one was literally the entire section.
Oh, okay.
Just copied and pasted right into the box. But if you're using the same language, the same verbiage to kind of show how you connect with it, that I think can be really great.
I think like as a rule of thumb, we usually look for things that are like deeper. Like we like to see some depth to the answers, not just kind of skimming over and just giving us a short answer. And like we're looking for somebody who's thought about it and actually put effort into the answer than just. So if you show that you've thought about it, we'll see that.
There's one more instance that we might talk about for just a few minutes where we see this kind of thing happening. There's typically a question on these that says, tell me about 3 things you'd personally like to accomplish in this position. 9 times out of 10, the applications we receive all answer in the exact same way. It's as if they're copying and pasting from one another.
Even though they're not.
Even though they're not. They're obviously not. But we ask, what are 3 things that you'd like to accomplish in this position? For this one in particular, it's I want to become more confident in my leadership skills, I want to do better at communicating with people, and I want to give back for the wonderful things that this library has given me. Everybody says that. It really catches our attention when we hear somebody that will come into it and say I really think that we can improve our processes by developing a system of accountability that helps us to keep better track of our reading and facing. Okay, iron. We're going with that one, you know what I mean?
I love the library.
Stacks.
For a position like this one, it's probably not good to sell the point that you're really excited to become a leader, because we're looking for people who are ready to be leaders. Everybody says, I want to become a better leader. That's a misstep right out of the gate. You're trying to sell yourself here as the leader that we need in the library. And so it would be much stronger to say, as a leader in the library, what I want to accomplish is say I want to make a record of my leadership skills so that I understand better how I work and what I can do to improve my leadership. That gives us a very concrete example of something that you're willing to do and that you're going to get out of this position. Sammy, let's take Sammy for example. Our hope is that this gives her skills that are going to help her propel her professional life forward. She's going into vet tech studies, right?
Yeah.
So Sammy, you come to an application like this one, can you make a connection between being a library lead student? How is this going to slingshot you forward as a vet tech? If you can make that connection as something that you want to accomplish, don't tell me now, because I don't want to see it show up on an application. I'll know who it is, and then I won't be able to go through the process with them. Do you see what I'm saying, no? If you can take a look at that and say, this is what I will gain, that I will use moving forward, it's much more effective than, I want to make sure the books are straight on the shelves, because that's so important to me. Okay.
You're laughing, but we're not.
We've seen it. We've seen it. That's a real line used with permission from an actual application we got. It's really important to me that books are straight on the shelves.
Yes.
That's like the first thing you learn in training. We pay you for it anyway. It's not going to move you forward here.
Yes.
Do you have any question?
Yeah. So I'm obviously not applying for that because I probably won't be. But it is for future jobs that I will be applying for. You were saying that, because now I'm wondering if you're kind of contradicting yourselves.
Very possible.
When you say that we don't want you to say what's wrong with the library, because that you're implying that everything needs to be better, but you still want them to say how they want to do something different.
Can I take this
Just
one?
elaborate on what you mean.
Sure. Do you want it?
Go.
Okay. So there's a difference between saying I have a way to improve something versus I'm going to make things better, right? So when someone says I want to establish a culture of friendliness. They're saying there isn't one there, and that the difference is going to be them pulling everything together. It feels to me a little unrealistic, number one, about what they're actually going to do, because I promise you everyone who came before tried. And number two, it just feels unaware. Versus people who come in and say, hey, I've noticed we have an issue here, and I think this is how to do it to fix the problem. They're saying, yeah, there's an issue, but here's how I want to change it. So instead of it being thoughtless, they've put thought into it.
Mackenzie, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I just think whatever you're gonna say, make sure you follow it up and explain why are you saying this. You know what I mean? And what are you gonna do about it? Don't just say this part of the library needs to be improved, but say this part of the library needs to be improved, and this is why I think it, and this is what I'm gonna do about it. Does that make sense? So like, it's the people who say something negative and they keep it shallow that are the people that are like, what? You know? But when people say something that they've noticed and then they dig into that, that's really impressive.
Yeah. Does that help make sense a little bit? Because if you come to this organization, for example, and say, I am going to improve communication, that's kind of gutsy, because we've spent our whole last year and a half improving and streamlining communication. And it almost sort of feels like a slap in the face, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to take it personally, but it sort of feels like, oh, well, what are you going to do? And if they can come back and say, well, this one specific thing will make a difference, that really is powerful, because you look at that and go, oh yeah, you know, I'm going to improve the culture at the library. Well, how do you build on this, what we've got? Maybe that's through an effort to speak to everybody that you work with on a daily basis or something like that. Those kinds of things matter. The specifics are always, I think, more impressive than broad, generalized, sort of half-baked.
It goes back, and so we're gonna get you. It goes back to an experience that we had when we interviewed one of our candidates, and you asked, and on her response, she said, "I want to be able to be more accountable and responsible."
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been working on accountability and responsibility, and then you asked, what is the difference between those two things? And she was able to rephrase those things and say the difference between them in a way that's very applicable to the job that we have over here. When a candidate takes a situation like, I want to improve the culture of the library. Okay, but how can you do that? Okay, making sure that I do this, and work with my leads on this, and make sure that I motivate my team towards this, you know, so we can continue moving forward with that culture that has been built. Does it make sense? Yeah.
If those are things that we're already doing, then it feels like you're not paying attention.
That's happened too.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But if you can bring something to the table that we haven't yet considered, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Or my experience has been, unless the position you're applying for is specifically pointed at reshaping culture, then you don't touch culture. You know what I mean? You talk about how that culture can touch you and how you want to be a part of it, but you don't go to McDonald's. When they say, how are you going to contribute? You say, I am going to make McDonald's the #1 food chain in America. Because McDonald's is going, we're already there. Where have you been?
Mm-hmm.
That same kind of Edith?
Yeah, more of like a comment / question to clarify myself, because I need to ask that.
Sure.
So, something that I noticed by hearing all this is that it's very interesting how my way of thinking is different to yours, and maybe it's because of experience, culture, many different things, because it was very fun to see how, when I read the applications, obviously having never participated in a selection process, I've never been in that position before, I spotted things that said like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good thing. Then you said like, okay, this is awful, and I'm like, oh no. And so it was good to hear it from you, so I know how to word things in the right way. But that follows to my question, because if I were to apply, which I would like to do for any position in the future, I want to make sure that I'm saying things in a way that it won't come off bad for you, because it might be sounding good for me, but not for you. Like, for example, I don't know, this is a thing in my country when people say like, when I am in that position, back in Chile it sounds like, oh, that person is like determined.
It's confidence.
And in your
Mhm.
case you were like, that sounds pretentious. And so how can I make sure that I word things in a way that won't come off, in a way that will be like, okay, no, this person is not the right candidate.
Go ahead.
Or like that I do not mess it up with the organization of the text. Maybe not the word choice, but like the way I organize it. Because like you were like bullet points, paragraphs, and I'm like, I like both of them. What's gonna be better?
I think that, first of all, you come to things like this. You know, you research and you get our ideas and you see how we think. Being here is a great first step, and I think that that's where you're going to start. Take notes about what we've said, and then apply, and then take that and put it in. Also, I think that we all, 4 of us, think differently. Like you saw an example of that between like, I like a paragraph, I like long and wordy, as you can tell in my application, and Felipe likes bullet points.
And numbers.
So we're not coming, yeah, and numbers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we
I don't
think
like either.
differently, and everyone on this council
John
thinks
likes
differently.
pictures.
Yeah.
Can we do pictures?
Yeah. And so like, we all have different perspectives, and so when we go in to look at your applications, it's not like one person's looking at this and there's one opinion. You guys saw kind of a snapshot of what goes into the conversations, but we go into depth a lot about like, you know, like I think this is good, but I think this is not good, and like, where do we find that common ground?
Yeah.
So I think do your research, and then also trust that we have different ideas and different opinions, and we come together and like merge those ideas, if that's the right way, and come to a decision. So it's not just based on one person's like, I think that's pretentious. Someone else might think something different.
Yeah.
In most instances in the real world, there's some sort of a committee. We call it counseling, right? We counsel together because we understand that there's strength in drawing from 4 very different points of view. In most job settings, there is some sort of an established committee that's going to give you a variety of perspectives in an attempt to try to protect this kind of thing from happening. On the other side of that fence, though, you can't. You got to do your research, you got to do your homework, you got to find out all you can about what they're looking for that position. And then the next job you apply for, you got to throw your resume in the garbage and start over because they're going to be looking for something completely different. So this idea that you're going to have one resume that you're going to just kind of float around to people is really a poor practice in my mind. It's a lot more effective for you to get used to the idea of I'm going to retool this for each application I submit.
There's also the fact that you guys got to see a very pretty version of this, right? There was 4 applications.
Yeah, look at mine.
Yeah.
From the last time we did this, 16 applications.
Yeah, we had 16 last time, and we were lucky here where we agreed.
Yeah.
Right?
That never happens.
That
There's always
doesn't-
one
Yeah.
person that's like way different.
It's me.
It's always John.
We reserved a half hour. We've already almost gone a full hour.
Usually.
Normally, when we have 4 applications, we would set aside a 3-hour block just in case.
Take a break.
Because we are going to comb through these and we are going to discuss and deliberate every point.
We have to come in having read all of them thoroughly. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Who was it? Was it McKay one time? You guys probably weren't there. She hadn't read through them. Was that you?
My very first time. You guys didn't tell me what to do.
Well, then that was our fault. But was that the one that we canceled and postponed it?
Yes.
Because we didn't
I
feel
believe.
like we were prepared to move forward until everybody had taken the
Uh-huh.
time to do their homework. So we really do take this seriously. It's not a last minute like, let's videotape it this time. We take this pretty seriously. And it's an attempt to kind of hedge your bets as well, knowing that you don't know how to read our minds.
And once we know who a person is, it can change how we see what they said. So what might have been originally concerning, then we're like, oh,
You're like, that's not.
never mind, that's not a problem.
Like Felipe mentioned earlier, he's noting line edits here that should have been made. Well, when we find out that person is not a native English speaker, then
Yeah.
we can come back to this application and,
And
say, okay,
review
let's
that.
cut him some slack for punctuation and spelling.
Yeah.
My application didn't have the best English, so.
Everything.
So one thing like
Player.
one thing about the whole process, I think it's very very important for you all. I really like what Suzanne said. I came so I can learn it and I can apply for my next job applications. The whole process that we developed It's not for the sake only of getting, oh, this is the perfect person, like a really good fit for the position, but also it can help us to understand how a real application process works. Last semester we went over 30 candidates interviewing them, and some of you guys were there. And it was really interesting because I got 2 interviews this semester, and in those 2 interviews, the questions were very similar when it comes to behavior. They ask you, describe a situation, where this and this and that. And you gotta be very conscious of making sure that you answer the question, not just going around. And I feel like if you take this process seriously and do your very best and try to implement those things, make some research about the culture of the place and how you can describe that in a way that's very professional, that it's not gonna please everybody, but definitely it's gonna help everybody understand that you have your way to provide the job that needs to be done. I feel like if you take the time, you're gonna get better and better. And when you come out to apply for internships, all of us for internships, for whatever type of job we want to get, we'll be way more prepared, because you're gonna come to the interview confident that you know how to describe a situation, you know what to do in the situation, what was the result, and what you learned from that. And you have no problem answering those questions. If you know how to do that, you're 100% sure that you are halfway in front of the other candidates that are applying for the same position as you.
I think it's important to know as well, sorry, I'm just going to keep talking. But I think it's important to note that maybe you don't get on your first time.
Yeah.
And then Brother Oswald calls you in his office and he tells you things that maybe you could correct. Take those.
Take it.
Learn, change. It's not the end of the world if you don't get on the first try. It's a learning experience that you can take from the library into your future career. Think of it more like that than this is my one and only shot. It's a learning experience.
And if you don't get it on the first try, don't make the mistake of thinking, well, I'm not what they're looking for, or they don't like me, so I'm not going to apply again. No, you should be, if you have a desire to fill a certain position, you should be applying every time it's open. Eventually you start to learn some really important things, like I can handle rejection and bounce back and still be just fine. It hurts, but I'll survive it. You start to recognize that there are other more important things that can come from the process of applying, besides just getting the job that you think you want. You gain experience and you gain all these things that you can then push forward into, maybe you don't get a lead position here, but you're going to nail that vet tech job because you understand that process of applying your experience to what they're looking for. You're making the argument that you are the candidate they need for that position. And you know how to pack that with evidence and reasons and all these kinds of things.
The other thing I would say is do this the way that fits most comfortably for you. So when we had it, it used to be just a Word document. But now what I would just do is copy and paste the questions into a Word document, edit it there, and then when you're ready, post it. Gives you time, takes off a little bit of the pressure, and then when it's done, if you don't get the position, you can go back and say, well, what didn't I do good? And the other thing to consider is we don't give preference to people who have been here longer just because they've been here longer. Lori Ann had been here couple months.
Yeah.
I had worked here 4 months, and Brother Oswald hadn't met me. I was off track. But we've also had people who have been here for a while do a great job on the application. So it really doesn't matter where you're at. It matters if you're doing good. That's what we look at.
You're good at that, huh?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think Sam has a question.
Sam,
Quick
go ahead.
question for you. So, kind of going off that, would it be possible, and if it's okay if it's not, but I have submitted past applications, is it possible to review those and get constructive criticism back?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you're preparing for applying for these positions, I think we would respectfully request that you not bring application materials to us.
Yes, not for the
Because-
current one, right?
right,
But
right.
just past ones.
Right. So in terms of moving forward, take them to your leads. Get your leads feedback on those application materials. As we've mentioned here, some of them have been through this process enough times that they can give you some really solid feedback. as far as applications you submitted in the past, by all means, bring them to us. We'd be happy to sit down and, especially me, I guess I shouldn't speak
Yeah.
for you all in your
Just
class
you in this
schedules and
case.
everything. Just me in this case.
And you don't want to hear from that
Come and
anyways.
talk with me, and I would love to sit down and go over it.
Because I feel like I should have saved my past applications.
Ooh, I'm
but
hoping I did.
You didn't.
So
I may have.
I don't know what I wrote.
We'll figure something out. Okay, Coulter, would you poke that in the eye for us?
Woo!